Hello, everyone. Welcome to the F1 House. My name is Sakki. Today, I'm joined by Marium from Fast Cars and Diamonds.
Hi. Thank you
She,
so much for having me.
no,
Super excited to be here and very excited for this opportunity as well. So thank you.
yep. I think today is a bit of a tight squeeze because literally qualifying has just finished. So we'll
Yeah.
be just mentioning that very briefly. But the main topics for today will be obviously talking about the news topics over the past. Can you hear that? I think I've got an echo
I'm all right.
there. Just topics over the past few days around the world of F1, namely, obviously Interlagos being at risk or pretty much gone from the calendar over the next few seasons, which is brought on a lot of different emotions and feelings from F1 fans throughout the world. So we'll be talking about that and then various other news topics. But as I always start, how are you today?
Yeah, all
Yeah,
good.
all
I
good.
mean, just finished watching Collie, so I'm kind of in two minds at the moment. But yeah, that was interesting. Quali.
Yeah, Bottas qualifying on pole from what you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bottas in first, Hamilton second. Leclerc came fourth fastest apparently, so that's interesting.
What have Ferrari done?
I don't know, but I'm happy about it because I love seeing Ferrari at the top. But yeah, I think it's super exciting, obviously, having a Ferrari so close to the front three.
Yeah,
But also, can we just talk about Hulkenberg being back for
yeah.
the weekend?
I don't know what happened there. I literally went out for a bike ride. I came back and Hulkenberg was back. Hulken back. What's going on? That is very strange. And
I know.
they haven't said what's wrong with Stroll, have they?
No, they haven't. They haven't actually said anything about what's wrong with him. They just said that he's not feeling well. So, I mean, I don't know if it's Corona. I don't know if the Rona's got him or what, but yeah, I think super excited. I think it's quite good that I mean it's exciting for Hulkenberg to be back for
Mm,
like his race. So yeah, I don't know.
yeah, we'll see. I've got a feeling it isn't because I think they were they were considering actually allowing him to drive, but because he was ill, they didn't want to risk it because obviously whoever drives, you have to drive basically in a number of sessions before being allowed to take part in the race. So I can imagine them. He may have gotten worse, so they didn't want to risk it. So,
Yeah.
but happy to see Hulk come back. But moving on to that first topic, Interlagos. The FIA and Formula One are planning to obviously move the Brazilian race to Rio, and as a result of that, there's obviously going to be a lot of changes to the area that they're planning to move it to, and this has courted a lot of controversy from some top drivers and obviously environmentalists and a lot of Brazilians who are questioning the move. Me personally, I just don't get it because Chase Carey's come out and said in that letter that he released, it's not financially viable. Um, but that track obviously has a lot of history there. For me, I don't understand why you'd want to just move on to a new track. I can obviously understand it because Rio, when you say the words Rio, it's kind of like you want to go there on holiday. It's one of those buzzwords, or probably one of the first places that you think of when you think about Brazil. I can get the commercial angle, but for them to come out and say it's not commercially viable, that just kind of reminds people that it's business first for Formula One, and if they're not getting what they want from a deal, or they're getting cheaper options, it just it's a constant reminder that this is a business. I don't know what you think about it.
No, I think I agree with you to be honest. I think it's very controversial for them to be saying on the one hand that they're trying to be, you know, more sustainable and they're trying to go down this carbon neutral route, and then for them to be saying, actually, we're planning on deforesting this huge amount of land and, you know, building this new circuit, which in all honesty, we don't really need. Um, Interlagos obviously has such a huge history behind it. We've been racing there since 1990, so
Mm,
I think there's just no need really. I mean, if they're trying to bring more if they're trying to make it more sustainable, there's probably different ways that they can adapt the current circuit rather than, going out of their way to create this whole new circuit, cut down all of these trees, and then say, oh, we're going to plant all these other trees in, this part of Brazil and whatever. I just
Mm.
don't think it makes any sense, to be honest. And I'm honestly quite glad that, obviously, I don't know how much influence Lewis will actually have in the decision, but I'm quite glad that he's saying that he's against it because from an environmentalist point of view, it makes zero sense. And even from a racing point of view, I mean, I understand that Interlagos itself, it's got such a rich history, as I said,
Mm.
and I understand that it's more of a promoter kind of track, but there's still no need, I think, for them to bring in this whole new circuit. And I think maybe it is just the whole commercial thing, like you said,
Yeah.
but it just makes sense to me.
Yeah. Do you know what? It makes me question as well the actual direction that F1 is going in terms
Mm,
of this year's been so hectic. I can understand all these new tracks popping up, but I think F1 may be taking it as an opportunity to pursue different options long term because they've seen it work in a very short amount of time. They've been able to put on new venues at very short notice,
yeah,
which have added a little bit more excitement and intrigue to the sport because nobody really knows what's going to happen at a lot of these tracks. Um, I kind of question: is this going to be their new approach to kind of organising races? Will they kind of will they look at new options or try returning back to old tracks? Will they look to mix up even more in terms of contract lengths? Will they give more flexibility in that sense? Because I don't
yeah.
know. It was just one of my thoughts. I don't know what you thought about that in terms of
It's a
the
good point.
future.
I mean, if this is their new approach, then again, it doesn't really make sense to me. I think if you think back to obviously how crazy this year has been and how they've had to all of a sudden change the whole calendar and revisit all these other tracks, like, is it really like what's the need basically for them to build a whole new track when we have all these
Yeah,
other tracks that are they can put them to use, like Tuscany. I know it's a MotoGP track, it's not an F1 track, but it was such a great race. Like it had so much like what's the word? Just so much excitement
chaos.
around. Yeah, chaos.
I'd go with chaos. Yeah,
And I just think if they were to maybe, instead of following the same kind of structure every year where they have 21 races at X, Y, and Z track, maybe if they were to change it year in, year out and bring in new tracks and take away
mm,
certain tracks and whatnot, and then I don't know, I just think that would be probably a bit more exciting. Like if they're worried about the excitement element of, the sport, then there's
yeah,
so many different ways that they can take an approach as opposed to building a whole new circuit when there really is no need for it. I just think it's
yeah,
such a waste of money, such a bad choice in regards
mm,
to the environment. Like it just makes zero sense. And I really just want to understand the logic behind it
yeah.
because I know that Brazil's president is like all behind it and whatever, but is it again just from like a tourism point of view? Is he just interested in, getting more people over to Brazil? Like, I don't know,
Yeah,
but it doesn't make any
some
sense.
good points. I'm just gonna say thank you to everyone joining the live chat at the moment. Please leave a comment. I know a few of you have left a comment already. There's Steve Russ who's obviously talking about qualifying. He said, "What happened to Ferrari? P4? Wow. Yep, I agree. I think there's some juju or black magic occurring. They've brought some immense updates to this race. Clearly, why have they waited all this time to sort their act out? That's the real question. Um,
True.
got Beth Langley. I agree the controversy is ridiculous. Not sure how I feel about it. Thank you for commenting. If you are watching, hit the like button, subscribe, go and check out Marium's Instagram page once we're done. Fast Cars and Diamonds. I'm gonna link it down below. Um, check her out. She's an amazing content creator. Hopefully, she'll be joining a lot more on the channel. Maybe even creating her own YouTube channel. Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? Um, but yeah, going back to the point of Interlagos, I think clearly it's a bit of a wild decision to be cutting down 70,000 trees and then saying you're going to replant them somewhere else. It doesn't really need to be done. Um, but what I want to see is more details about the deal because I feel like it's a done deal already. For me,
Oh,
F1 wouldn't come out with a letter from Chase Carey, the man at the top of the organisation, without obviously it being agreed from a number of parties and there being some sort of contractual agreement already. So I feel like it's gonna happen already, despite it being at the expense of a very historic track. Just think, yeah, it's pretty much a done deal for me, and it's kind of aims at the wider question. Like, do you feel that F1 is just out of touch with the world's issues as a whole? Because they they're basically just saying, I don't want to go to this track, even though it's fine. It's got history. I'm going to allow them to chop down trees. I'm going to do this, that, and the other, and not really care about the environment. On top of, I know I'm just playing devil's advocate and trying to kind of give alternative opinions. So let me know in the comments what you think, guys. If you disagree or agree, let me know. But do you think that F1's a bit out of touch with what's going on in the wider world?
that's a
Controversial.
really good question and a really good point, considering everything that's happening this year,
Yeah.
I think that's a very, very good question. I don't know. For me, it's just the whole contradiction of like F1 coming forward. I think it was a few years ago where
Mm,
they were like on a mission to kind of be more carbon neutral and more sustainable,
yeah.
and then to come out with this idea. But as you say, the fact that they've released this letter, and I mean, maybe it is a done deal. I hope it's not a done deal, but if they're just going against the opinions of their fans and the people who actually, watch the sport, then I don't know. I just think they need to kind of have a bit of a reality check if that's the case.
Mm. Playing devil's advocate again, I know I'm coming with the awkward questions, but do you think we have any right to say that Brazil as a state shouldn't be building other tracks and using their natural resources? Do you think
Yes,
we do?
yeah,
So you don't think it's a bit
because when the
arrogant of
fans
us?
were watching this, like we, like imagine any sport without a fan base.
Hmm.
Where would you be? Like we drive a huge amount of financial aid, I guess, to the sport just by being fans and just by enjoying watching these people go around in their fast cars.
In circles.
Um, yeah, like I just think, obviously, it's not completely down to us. I don't think they should be asking us, like, what do you guys think? But I think they should really consider that point of view. Like, what do the fans want, I suppose?
Mm. Yeah, to be honest, I'd kind of agree with you. I think they need to kind of take into account fan opinion. I can never really tell a state or a big company like F1 what to do, but at the same time, just, could F1 have more engagement with fans and get their thoughts on stuff? Like, do they really want to attend a race in Rio over a track where we've seen some greats race and it's got so much history? Like, I know a lot of F1 fans are used to changing circuits, but yeah, I don't. Will we ever get to the stage where we're getting consultation periods from F1? Not quite sure, but
I doubt that'll happen,
it's
but
hopeful.
I do know that the sport is obviously trying to bring in more of its audience engagement and try and get fans more involved. So maybe that would be something that they could consider trying to hear us out and see what we have to say. Because, I mean, if you've got the number one driver in the world at the moment saying, look, this isn't a good idea, I'm not really in support of it, then surely that's something that you should be listening to as well. And like,
Mm,
obviously, his fans will probably be behind him. So,
yeah, and to
yeah,
be honest, I think it's not just Lewis fans. It's just I don't know about you, but the response that I've seen online in general from all fans has been, "What are you doing?" Pretty
yeah,
much, that pretty much sums it up. They're like very confused, questioning the move because it's just come out of pretty much nowhere. I've seen
yeah,
online there's been a few plans for tracks, but I think the timing of it all seems a bit strange.
very strange.
Seems very strange. But obviously, like I said, playing devil's advocate again, it will benefit some aspects of the Brazilian economy. So, you know, there will be some massive winners from this, It's just change. I'm not quite sure people enjoy it. But moving on to the next topic, Honda leaving
Honda.
Honda leaving F1 in 2021. So obviously in the past few days, quite a while ago now, I think it's over a week ago, they announced they'll be leaving the sport as an engine supplier after the 2021 season. We've got ECTV joining us in the live chat. Thanks for joining. Make sure you give us a like. But yeah, back to Honda. What do you think about that? I think for me, it came out of the blue big time. I thought with the new deal being announced until 2026, I thought Honda would stick around for a little while. And obviously, Max Verstappen signed a new deal relatively recently. I thought that would have been one of the stipulations of his contracts, because why would you sign a fairly long-term contract
Yeah.
if you didn't have an engine supplier tied in? So I thought it was a bit of a bombshell, and there's obviously a lot of questions that have come out of this. But what did you think about it?
I think I'm probably just as confused as everyone else, to be honest. I
Yeah,
mean, in reality, Honda have been so in and out of F1. Like when did they come back? What, 2015 or something? They haven't been back for very long. So I was kind of expecting a long-term stay from them, and then for this announcement to just come, as you say, out of the blue, was very much like, what, why? Um, but then obviously Max has kind of come forward and said, actually, it wasn't that surprising for him. So
mm,
I don't know. Obviously, you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. You don't know what the conversations that they're having. Um,
yeah,
so it's confusing, and obviously it begs the question, who's going to replace them? Because Red Bull now need a new engine supplier. So
yeah,
I think that's the biggest question mark out there now. Like, who's going to replace Honda? Um,
yeah.
and obviously, what effect will it have on Red Bull's performance? Because they have slowly started to pick back up, and like I would say maybe within the next year or so, Max would have had more of a chance of being a contender for the title. Um, but obviously now that this is all up in the air, it's just like what's going to happen to their car and their
Yeah.
performance? Are they going to go back down to being a midfield team? Like, what's the
It's
situation?
really really messed with Red Bull's plans, I imagine, because they're going to be thinking, what is going on? We've got this big rule change coming up where a lot of teams will be eyeing that up as an opportunity to
Yeah,
leapfrog Mercedes. And right now, Red Bull don't even know which engine they're going to be using for that rule change, which will
yeah,
have a big impact on the performance of their car. It's all good having the best designer ever there in Adrian Newey, but if you don't have an engine that's compatible with the setup or the design of the car, it's just you don't know what's going to happen. So it is for me. It's a massive point for Red Bull in terms of the direction that they're going, because, like you said, the options for them in terms of engines are so limited.
yeah,
Ferrari are not going to supply them. Mercedes are not going to supply them. Renault, they've got history of Renault, or like a bad history recently, because obviously it didn't end on good terms. Red Bull pretty much having to go crawling back to Renault to get them to provide that engine again, unless they can kind of figure out some sort of alternative arrangement with Honda. I'm not sure
mm,
what their plan is. And this kind of goes on to a different point, which was raised by Andreas Seidel, the McLaren team principal, basically kind of asking the question, do we need more engine suppliers in the sport? Which is obviously yes, but do we need them just specifically making engines for F1 without looking at road cars and the impact on road cars and using the technology in large scale manufacturing, which I think is actually another good point. I'm patting myself in the back. I know it's a bit weird, but I'm gonna do it because it made me think. Like, with the rise of electric cars, that
yeah,
argument that F1 technology in the engines will get translated into road cars and large scale manufacturing does, for me, it kind of puts into doubt that whole mindset of that technology being used in road cars, because road cars now are increasingly becoming electric. So
Mm.
where does that leave F1? Especially with Formula E, they're doing their own thing. F1 are they've kind of dabbled in electric technology, but they still want to keep it true to the origins of the sport and not go. They won't go. I doubt they'll go full electric, but it really does make me question what is going on. Like that same question has F1 kind of lost its identity? Is it having an identity crisis? That's the feeling that I get this year. It's really weird. I just feel like no one really knows what's going on. It seems chaotic.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point. I think we're in this moment at the moment where everything is just being questioned, and you're just like, what actually is the future of this sport? Um, I think the idea of bringing back independent manufacturers, it would definitely bring a lot more competition to the sport. But then also you have to consider the fact that the regulations are changing
Mm.
for 2022. So obviously there'll be more of an equal fighting ground for everyone. So I don't know. It's just, again, there's just so many questions around the whole idea. Like, I've seen people online being like, "Oh, maybe BMW need to come back and be a engine supplier." Um, Obviously, Aston Martin is probably out of the question for Red Bull because they're coming in as their own team next year. So it's just, I th we can debate all we want and we can ask all these questions, but it's just like, what, until they kind of give us an indication of what's actually going to happen, like,
Yeah,
it's hard to really say. And
yeah.
I just don't know, like you said, what the future of the sport is. But maybe we could have independent manufacturers again. Like, that could be, it'd be very interesting.
Yeah.
Uh,
For me, I
but
think it
yeah,
needs to. I think it needs to happen. I feel like the sport needs to kind of go back to those roots because this it's the current state where there's going to be three engine suppliers and one team doesn't have an engine.
yeah,
That's It's not sustainable. And if you let's say you're a new team looking into F1, you're looking at this disruption and you're thinking, what's the benefit for me and why would I take such a risk in
yeah,
2026 to enter the sport when there's so many variables up in the air and I'm not going to get paid without paying 200 million to or to all the teams, in
yeah,
addition to the sunk costs. It's just for me, F1 needs to kind of sort it out and obviously make it more of a viable option for most teams to compete. But we don't know what. This is one of the things we don't know what's been agreed in that new Concord agreement. It's like you said, we can debate it um, to the nth degree, but we don't know. We've got a comment from ECTV, potentially universal parts. So that's another option, like universal parts where every team kind of have identical parts for some of the parts, and then some of the other parts they get to have some autonomy and create them. It's a very good idea. If you're watching this, please hit the like button. Help us get out to more people. It really does help. So let's move on to the next because it's kind of linked to that Honda leaving in 2021. Obviously, Max Verstappen has been kind of the talk as a result of this announcement because a lot of people were saying that he had a clause in his contracts that was linked to Honda staying in the sport.
hmm,
But I think Christian Horner's come out and actually said that that clause doesn't exist. But for
yeah,
me personally, I think there are other performance-related clauses that he would have put in there because why would you want to get locked into a contract after a rule change when you don't know um, who's going to be the top team basically, and he wants to win a championship. But for me, it kind of it's alarm bells again for Max because he's getting to that stage where he'll know he's capable of winning a championship, and he should be there or thereabout, and it's just not been the case at all. Fair enough, Mercedes have been just untouchable, but in the coming years, like it should be a possibility of the rule change. So just looking at Max, for me, it's like a real concern because where is he going to go? Where is he going to go? I don't see any seat opening up for him. And in the articles that I'll link down in the description, he's already said himself, Mercedes and Ferrari aren't an option. So it is a bit of a strange one. There's a lot of uncertainty there, and I can imagine there just being a mad day of news where one of the top drivers just gets kicked or makes a move, and it triggers, very similar to this year, it just triggers a series of events, and Max will end up moving. I don't see Max staying at Red Bull. I don't see him staying. What do you think?
I think it's really interesting that you say that actually, because I think Max, obviously Red Bull are so behind him. Like they see him as their golden boy and whatnot, and I think he's got a very good chance of winning the title with the team. Obviously, now
Mm,
that the Honda situation has arisen, like there is question marks around that, but I think they were hoping that Max would be a championship winner with them.
yeah,
But where Max has come out and said that like Ferrari and Mercedes aren't an option for him, I don't know if I believe that, because think about it. How long has Hamilton really got left in this sport,
mm,
right? He's going to win this year, so he'll be on par with Schumacher. I
yeah,
personally don't think he's going to be here for much longer. I think he's probably going to try and get just ahead of Schumacher,
yeah,
get maybe 8, 9 wins. But we all know that Hamilton's got a million other dreams, like, and things in the pipeline. So he's working on fashion, he's working on music. I think F1, as much as it is his number one love, I think he'll leave within the next few years,
mm,
especially as the sport becomes more kind of equal. I don't think he'll like that, so I
yeah,
think he'll want to leave. And then that'll be like a prime opportunity for Mercedes to pick up Max, because as much as he says that like he wants to stay with Red Bull and like they're not um it's not an option for him to move to one of the top teams, we forget like he's such a good driver. Max, as much as I don't like him personally, I think he is. I know I probably
come
shouldn't
on,
say that.
come on, let's have love for all the drivers. Oh, wow. You obviously got a good connection there. You know Max in person, yeah? You met him? No, I'm joking.
I don't
Yeah,
know. No, he's grown up a bit, but I didn't
yeah,
like him at first. But
okay.
yeah, I think he's a really talented driver. Really, he just knows what he's doing, and
Mm,
I think the sport won't let him go. There will be someone out there who will want to pick him up and will want to get that win with him just because he really has that determination. He's so focused. I see a lot of Hamilton within him, to be honest, and I
mm,
think he definitely has what it takes to succeed and to get that title win. So I think, yeah, the sport won't let him go. There will be a team that will want to pick him up. So as much as he's saying that there aren't really that many options out there for him and stuff, it's hard to know what's going to happen after the changes come in 2022. And I
mm,
think that's when we'll see more of like who's at the top, and I think that's when Max will start considering and start seeing who his other options are. You never know, Aston Martin might be like great and they might pick him up. Racing Point at that point could be at the top of the
yeah,
field. Yeah. They might want to pick him up. You never know, but I think he's definitely got options out there. So,
yeah. I
yeah.
think you're definitely right in terms of not believing too much what Max has said, because I would love to see Max win the championship at Red Bull,
Yeah.
because relatively they've been in the sport for such a short amount of time, and what they've done has been huge. Obviously, Max for me is the only one that even comes close to Lewis,
Yeah.
in any way. They're probably the most two like exciting drivers, um,
Yeah.
of this generation. Um, but like you said, do we believe what he said? Because when he said that, his words were actually, at the moment, no, in terms of I don't see a move to Mercedes or Ferrari, but it's always difficult to say what will happen in the next few years. And
There we
there we go.
go.
I'm a big Man United fan. Sorry for anyone watching that doesn't like Man U,
I didn't
but
know that.
but
I'm a
yeah.
Liverpool fan.
All right, we're gonna have to terminate this live stream. I'm joking. Yeah, I'm a big Man United fan, and I know it's football talk. You may not be interested, but I'll say it quickly. This reminds me of Pogba, Paul Pogba coming out quite frequently saying, "Yep, I'm happy at Man United, but you never know what will happen in future. Real Madrid, anybody would be happy to play for them. It'd be a dream for them." And Max is just being smart about what he's saying. Like he's obviously happy at Red Bull. They've
Yeah.
backed him. They're paying him to obviously be their lead driver. They're backing him fully. But like with anything, anyone wouldn't turn down a drive at one of these top teams. Just like Carlos Sainz didn't turn down Ferrari when they came knocking. Just like Sebastian Vettel wanted to stay at Ferrari. Just like George Russell's dying to get into Mercedes and drive in that seat. Like nobody would turn it down if they came knocking, because if you look at the different kind of business models that each of the teams have at the moment, I know the rules are changing in terms of budget and expenditure. Mercedes expenditure, Ferrari expenditure, they're in a league of their own. I think it's around 400 million mark they spend in terms of what they put into get their cars to that level. So if you're looking at Ferrari, they've spent well last year they spent about 400 million to do what they did, and they would have spent an equal amount this year, probably
Yeah.
even more given that the rules are changing. Mercedes spent around that mark, but Red Bull probably spend quite a bit. They do spend quite a bit less than those top teams. So it's one of those things that can't be changed. Like they are just on another level. Like as much as I love Red Bull and what they've done, they are on another level. So I think that's pretty much it. Do you have anything else you wanted to say about Max? How much you
No,
appreciate his talent, etc., etc.
no, I do. That's the thing. I can be appreciative of a driver and I can
Mm.
recognize that they are good drivers. I just think personally, especially considering his attitude when he was, I don't know, a few years ago, if you look back at how he used to behave, he's obviously matured a lot.
Yeah, I would agree with
Uh,
that. Yeah.
yeah, so maybe, I don't know, he'll change my opinion in a few more years. But
Do you know
like
what?
I never used to be a Hamilton fan, and even now I'm a bit skeptical, but I
Yeah.
like him a lot more. So I think I'm quite tough on drivers as individual people. But I can appreciate their talent, and I do think Max is a very good driver.
Yeah. I
So
think Max has grown on me a lot, especially this year. Like I like the way he's just getting on with things, and you can
yeah,
tell he's matured a lot, big time.
yeah,
Like he's grown on me
yeah.
this year. I've got a comment from ECTV. You would assume that George will take the Merc seat after Lewis leaves, but does he need a 2 year stint in a midfield team before he moves up? And does that leave Merc seat for Max? Oof, that's a good point. That is a very good point.
Uh,
What do you think? I'll let you answer first.
Bottas. I might be just forgetting a really key point here, but where did he come from? Did he come straight from Williams into Mercedes?
Yeah, I think so. Let us know in the comments down below if that is not right. But I think he did come from Williams. Yeah, because he had some decent performances. He was at Williams when they were relatively stable.
Yeah,
So he got
I feel like if I don't know if I am forgetting a very key point here, but if Bottas came from Williams direct to Mercedes, then who's to say that's not an option for George? And George is so good. Like I'm so keen to see George climb up and get into a
mm,
different um, team, a midfield team, especially if they were. I don't know. I don't know where he could go. I don't know. Yeah, I am keen to see George kind
yeah,
of get up that ladder though. I think he would be great, and he'd be great at Mercedes as well.
yeah.
Like he was um, their was he their reserve or no? He was their test driver or something last when he was in F2,
Mm.
and he showed us what he had then. So I think he'd be great in Mercedes. So it could be a possibility.
Yeah, just responding to ECTV's comment there. Me personally, I think that the way that um, George Russell approaches everything makes a world of a difference. Like, if I don't know if anybody saw a bit of a media video that Claire Williams did about George Russell. She basically showed how professional he was.
Mm.
Like when they first met, he basically he brought out a PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah.
He brought out a PowerPoint presentation, so he was just on point, and he knew what he wanted to say. He was professional about it, and I imagine Like there's a lot of structure to the way that he works. He's obviously got the talent out on track, and taking that to a very systems-led, organised Mercedes team, I can see that being like a dream lineup.
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't see that happening until um, Bottas basically leaves or Lewis retires.
Yeah.
Like I can't see Lewis going to another team um, just yet. I can see him retiring more than anything. I don't see Bottas kind of hanging about if Toto leaves, because for me those two are like linked so tightly. Obviously, Bottas is managed by one of Toto's companies, so it makes it very hard for George whilst Bottas is there
Yeah.
to kind of, and like, would Mercedes go for George Russell over Max Verstappen if they had the option? That's the question that I think a lot of people will be thinking about. But yeah,
That would be interesting.
yeah, it will be. But yeah, thank you for joining me today. Thank you for everyone who's watched. If you're still in the live stream now, just hit that like button before we end the stream. It really does help us get out to more people. We're going to be coming back next week with a explainer video. Adam's made a nice video which I know that you will really enjoy, so that will be going out next week early. There might be another live stream next week depending on how much energy I've got. I'm not going to promise the world, but that's it for now. Thank you for joining. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.